What weird misconception did you have as a kid? I thought all TV shows were performed and broadcast live. I even thought reruns were them just performing it all over again. I thought something very similar. I thought cartoon characters were real people that just put on costumes, and on days when there was something else on, it was their day off. When I was hospitalized for dehydration at around 5 or 6, one of the nurses told me they were giving me root beer flavored IV fluids. I remember thinking it was so cool. Almost 20 years later I finally realized they were just trying to make a sick child feel better. I had the same thing happen. Never even thought about it. They even gave me a choice between root beer and grape. Used to think that the black market was a warehouse where terrorists would set up little stalls and sell guns and explosives like a bake sale. I always picture like a dark rainy Chinatown alleyway market, where people have butcher counters with human organs, kilos of drugs, stalls with military guns, and other cool crap. When I was 5, my grandma told me you can't ever sleep in jeans because it would give you cancer. I made sure to tell all my friends to take off their jeans before bed. Similarly, my grandma told me that if I swallowed my gum, I'd instantly die. Never chewed gum again until I was 13. Same grandma that convinced me that if I sleep while my hair is still wet, I'd go blind. That Japanese was not a different language, they just spoke English much faster. Thank my dad for that one. It was embarrassing how much I tried to just listen in and pick out the words. It's amazing how many of these start with "my dad told me." Dogs can't have chocolate, so cats mustn't be able to have vanilla. This is such quintessential kid logic. When I really had to pee while on a long car ride, I would ask my parents for bread or crackers because I thought it would act like a sponge and absorb the urine inside me and I wouldn't have to go anymore. I can see the logic in that. It would be good if it were true. In my country, speed bumps are called policias acostadas, which literally translates into police lying down. I thought there were policemen buried under every speed bump. I am from Colombia. We had a similar thing in the UK. Speed bumps are called sleeping policemen in some areas. Young me thought exactly the same. That my mother could talk with birds. Little bird told me. Didn't know Lord Varys was your mother. Where I'm from, everyone has electric stoves and I didn't even know about propane powered ones. So every time I saw show or media of some sort make a reference to someone committing suicide by putting their head in the oven, I thought they were just setting it bake or broil at like 450 and keeping their head in there till the heat killed them. Always baffled me there had to be a better way to off yourself. Probably wasn't till an episode of King of the Hill did I realize propane ovens were a thing, and even then a good while later till I put 2 and 2 together. That's embarrassing. I just clicked now. Thanks for informing me. I didn't understand what a girl's period was, so I thought from the commercials for tampons pads that all girls peed themselves. I also never understood why they used blue liquid. My 5-year-olds think I wear a diaper pad because I poop on myself sometimes. I'm like 99% sure my husband told them this. I thought that everyone got to be what they wanted to be growing up, so I assumed that cashiers, gas station attendants, and servers wanted to be those things. I figured this out when I passed a carpet store and thought, who wants to work selling carpets for their whole life? I also didn't understand that different jobs pay different amounts of money. I knew some houses were bigger than others, but it took me a while to realize why some people had bigger houses than others. OP was communist in ignorance. Someone once told me that during sex the penis is detached from the body and goes inside vagina, and that penis turns into a baby and a new one regenerates. I thought it was true for a very long time. Now I am just envisioning a guy running around naked and someone grabs him by the penis and it falls off and he runs away like it's a lizard tail. When I was 10 I asked a friend of mine why his dog was never upstairs and he said the dog can't go upstairs, which I took to mean that all dogs literally couldn't go upstairs. I believed this until I was 17. I thought that the 2 buttocks were the containers of respectively pee and poo. I thought that teachers lived at school. When I first went into the staff room, I wondered where all the beds were. I believed this too, but what makes it better is that my mother is a teacher. My parents used to hire this old couple to come to the house every 2 weeks to clean, and they were referred to collectively as the Hockers because their last name was Hoker. I thought hock was a verb that meant to clean. I thought vanilla was just the absence of chocolate. That the first month of the year was September, because that's when school started. And New Year celebrations were weird because they happened in the middle of the year. I used to think that car dealerships were built. 1. Foundation. 2. Add cars. 3. Build walls, roof, rest of building. I saw somebody one day that looked like an adult version of a school friend, like it looked a lot like him. So I instantly thought, oh crap, Steven grew up. This led me to believe for a while after that people age at different rates, and I wonder when I was gonna suddenly wake up an adult. Then again, I still do to this day. When my boyfriend was a kid, he thought that dishwashers worked similarly to clothes washers, as in, when you closed the dishwasher door, it filled with water, and all the dishes floated up into the water, and were violently just swished around. I also just did not get knock knock jokes as a kid. I got told the classic banana orange joke by my sister, and my tiny child brain thought that that was the formula for all knock knock jokes, so they always ended up sounding like this. Knock knock. Who's there? Frog. Frog who? Orange. You glad I didn't say banana? My son tried so hard when he was little. Knock knock. Who's there? Apple. Apple who? Apple window. I thought condom was short for condominium, so I would always say that I'd love to live in a condom. My grandfather always watched an evangelist before church on Sunday mornings. He had grey hair and was definitively in his 60s. He looked like a grandfather. I thought that was God, who would address everyone every week. Similarly, when people were trying to explain to me that God knew everything I did, I imagined him as the old evangelist, sitting in an office chair at a giant monitor of TV screens, like you see in newsroom depictions. On each screen was someone in the world so God could see everyone. I thought that about 100 or so years ago, before language was invented, humans sat around in a circle and started deciding what everything would be called. Like they'd pick up a leaf which was unnamed at the time and be like, "You're gringy leaf alami," and then all have a vote and move on to the next. I thought maybe it would take a week or so. Same, but I thought it was George Washington that did this. I thought my mom would be exhausted some days during the week because she would act weird or talk funny, but she always seemed better when she woke up. Turns out she was an alcoholic, but I didn't figure that out until later. She was sleeping off her drinks. Jesus Christ Superstar had me firmly believing that Jesus was king of the Jews, and that sounded super rad. And lo, though he died for our sins, on the third day he rose again, naturally sweeter and with 100% more antioxidants. When I was a kid, we learned at school one day that you shouldn't drink and drive. Later my family and I were out running errands and my mom stopped at the Jack in the Box and ordered us all lunch in the car. Then to my horror, when she finished handing everything out, she popped a straw into her drink and took a big drink. I started yelling at her that she shouldn't drink and drive, and that we were all going to die and mom was going to jail. It took a while for her to calm me down and explain to me that drinking Sprite was just fine and it didn't have alcohol in it. Similar misconception concerning drugs. We learned that alcohol and tobacco were essentially drugs. When pressed by a health consultant in elementary school regarding whether or not my parents took drugs, I responded yes, since I knew they both smoked and drank when we had parties. What a glorious evening week that was. I was convinced that time zones were gradual, so if you went a few miles up the road you'd have to put your watch forward 10 minutes. To be fair, that was how it worked before trains became a common method of traveling across the American West. My bro and I once asked my dad how far a car would go if the world's strongest man blew on it. He said Africa. We believed him. Thought Santa and the Easter Bunny were the same person. The guy at the mall did both of them but never changed from his Santa voice. Ho ho ho, happy Easter. I thought lemons and limes were the same fruit. Lemons were ripe, limes were not. I think that one's pretty reasonable. I mean, bananas go from green to yellow depending on ripeness. In elementary school, I only knew one person who was born on the 29th of February. He also happened to be the only person I knew that had Down syndrome. Until about 7th grade, I thought if you were born on the 29th of February, you would have Down syndrome. He had a leap chromosome. No idea why, but until I was like 7 I thought being allergic to something meant you turned into a witch if you touched it. Maybe you misheard itch at some point. I thought that plastic surgery was a cheaper form of low quality surgery where they used disposable plastic instruments packaged like plastic cutlery. I thought sperm were the size of baseballs with long giant tails. They force their way out of the end of your dong like some horrible birth-like event and then force their way into the woman if you were ever unlucky enough to have sex, which meant sleep in the same bed as the woman. This was based on a Facts of Life pop-up book my parents got me as a kid. You open to page 6 and bam, you were confronted with a huge butt sperm like what I described. No indication of scale. And when you're too early to read and are told, oh yes, those come out of the male when he has sex with the female to make a baby. Sex. Oh, that's when they sleep together. My biggest misconception as a child regarding sex was something along these lines. Sperm were giant tadpole looking things that were as big as an arm or something. I remember having a dream where I walked into a bathroom at school and it was full of bouncing giant white tadpoles. I thought that airplanes went straight up and waited for the earth to move enough to get them where they were going before going straight down. When I was very little I noticed that a tachometer shows the RPM of the engine in my mom's car had a portion where it became red. I asked my mom what happened if the dial made it into the red. The engine explodes. I spent the next few years watching that dial in terror waiting for it to finally hit red and kill us all. I can imagine your mom trying to get you and your siblings to behave in the backseat. Don't make me redline this tachometer and blow us all to heck. I thought the olden days were all without color, because that's what all the movies from then looked like. I thought all the music on the radio was played by one really big band. Me too, and whenever I would hear a song that faded out at the end, I thought that was the band still playing while walking out of the studio. The bumps of your spine was all the poop you would ever poop in your life. That's awesome, but imagining slowly crapping out my spine makes me want to cry. You have been visited by the wealth rat. Subscribe in 12 seconds and he will share his wealth with you. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.